Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation. I remain convinced that one of the quickest ways to get hopelessly lost is by asking yourself for directions when you don't know which way to go. Today I'm reading Judges 18 through 21, and this is another grouping of chapters that ends with the statement, and there are many. In this time there was no king, and everybody did as they felt was best. Everybody followed their own instruction. And these chapters here read like, I think a lot of us can look at stories these days. I feel like we can easily stand outside other people's lives and make judgments about the stupidity of where they have landed themselves. I think we read a lot of, in our house, we read some of the dumb criminal stories, and you just think, how in the world did you think you could get into that predicament and not be caught? It's so very obvious. And in reading these stories here in Judges, like kind of having the same experience. So the Danites, it starts out here, the Danites still have not actually claimed a spot in the promised land. So they're looking around, and they're not really looking for God to guide them here. And they come into the hill country of Ephraim to the house of Micah. Micah is an interesting figure here in that it's possible that he is the person, he stole Delilah's 1,100 pieces of silver that she was paid to betray Samson. But Micah, after coming along with this money from our last reading, he comes up with, interestingly, this 1,100 pieces of silver. It doesn't state specifically that he got it from Delilah, but it's an interesting coincidence. Anyway, after Micah found this money from our last reading, he comes into Judges 18 through 21, and he has hired himself a Levite. He found somebody from the Levite tribe wandering around that was willing to act as a priest in his home. Now, this isn't the way that the Levites are intended to serve God. They're not supposed to be household priests. They're supposed to serve in the temple, and there's only one group of Levites that are supposed to serve as priests, and those are the descendants of Aaron. So we see here that this Levite is named Jonathan, and we hear is actually the son of, he's a descendant of Moses. But he is here, he's taken on the job, he's in Micah's house, and he's preaching to Micah's family, and the Danites come along, and they want him to tell them whether or not it's a good idea for them to invade a neighboring area, these people that are super peaceful. They aren't people that God has said are needed to be destroyed, but they live in a really nice piece of land. So the Danites are kind of lusting after this space, and here they find this priest who is of questionable motives, and they're looking for him to justify what they want. And I think you can see this happen a lot with people who are consulting themselves. They consult themselves for the answer, and then they go looking for justification. So they go looking for somebody that will agree. Today we call them echo chambers. We look for people that are going to say the same things that we're saying, or that are going to agree and support our bad decisions. And Jonathan here supports the Danites' decisions to go and attack the people of Laish. And he says, yeah, it's a great idea. You should go do that. So they do. They go and they take that land, and that's where the Danites settle. And they come back to Micah's house and actually steal his priest and all of his graven images and the ephod he made out of some of the money that he stole. And they take the priest, and off they go, and they start to set up their own worship area in their own country. Meanwhile, we have another story come in 19, and this is one of these really problematic places in the Bible, where this is somebody in the Levite clan. He takes a concubine, and he is traveling, and instead of stopping, because we are reminded of Sodom and Gomorrah here, instead of stopping at a city that is not held by the Israelites, he decides that's too dangerous and too evil. He wants to only stop at a city that is held by someone within the Israelite group. So he stops in Gibeah, which is a Benjamite city. And over the course of the evening, the Benjamites have gotten so corrupt that they act just like that moment in Sodom and Gomorrah where the angels are inside the house and the city comes and wants to molest the angels. And that's the deciding factor for the cities to be destroyed. Here, the Levite in question does not take his grievance to God. Instead, he gives the Benjamites his concubine, and she is raped and murdered overnight. And what he does is consult himself and his own rage and his own need to take vengeance and rile up people to come against. So if we go back to Sodom and Gomorrah, God was making that decision. It was a divine judgment against the city. Here we have Levite gentleman making this call that he wants everybody to be so outraged to come and rise up against this city that he takes his dead concubine and he cuts her into 12 pieces and sends her throughout Israel. And this is a rightfully so really disturbing passage. And he winds up, everybody gets very upset. This is so wrong. This is so horrible. And what they're reacting to is not the Levite. They're reacting to the people in the city that killed the concubine. And so they're all consulting with themselves as to what they should be reacting to, what is righteous and what isn't, who should be punished and who shouldn't. And it's all wrong. It's all so obviously wrong. This leads to civil war. All of the sons of Israel outside of the Benjamite tribe gather together, and they decide, based on this outrage, they decide to go against the Benjamites, and they make a vow that they're going to make sure that the Benjamite tribe gets wiped off the planet. They're not going to give any of their daughters in marriage, and they're going to punish the offenders. But they don't ask God if that's okay. They're not looking for God to come and tell them what is righteous and what needs to be done. They only go to God and say who should be leading each day, who should go out in front. So it's very leading questions to God because, again, they don't want to ask directly for God's guidance. They aren't looking for God's guidance. They're looking for their own. And they're only looking for God to somehow acknowledge that what they're thinking is correct. Much of the Benjamite tribe is wiped out. A lot of the Israelites that are going against the Benjamites are wiped out because, of course, God is not in agreement with this sort of behavior. And then we get to the end, and what's left of all the Israelite tribes look at the Benjamite tribe and think, whoops, oh shoot, we should have thought this all the way through. We didn't see around all the corners, and we were just really mad, and we thought it was a good idea at the time, but now there's not much left of the Benjamite tribe, and we have to do something about that. But we made this vow that we can't intermarry with them anymore. So without that, the tribe is going to die. So now they start to come up with new ideas amongst themselves. Again, not asking God. They think about who didn't show up for battle that day, who didn't go in on the vow, and they discover that Manasseh didn't actually go in on vowing to not intermarry with the Benjamites. They didn't show up for battle, so they decide that it's okay to go and kill a bunch of their cities and haul off virgins. And then that's not enough because we're short. There aren't enough virgins for the number of Benjamites remaining. And so they think about how to get around their vow again, and they tell the Benjamites, well, if you go to this one festival and you watch for the women to come out into the vineyard and you steal those women, then we aren't technically marrying them off to you. We can keep our vow and we can make sure to undo the damage that we did when we weren't thinking really clearly. You read through all of this, and of course then it comes to the end of the reading. There was no king at this time. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. And that emphasis of what happens when we decide what's right. Our own eyes can only see what's in front of us, and they only see from our perspective. And if there's any kind of emotion involved at that time, even if we try to be clear-headed or balanced or walking in our morals, it's so easy to wind up someplace that you never intended. And this is why it's so critical that we learn from these stories and see that choosing to follow our own inner compass rather than seeking God as our leader, to ask God first which way we should point, to seek for answers outside of ourselves instead of to seek for wisdom inside of us, that keeps us out of danger. It keeps us on the right path. It keeps us from making mistakes that we have to then try to undo. And unfortunately, a lot of mistakes we make in our lives can't be undone. It's a dangerous place to consult ourselves instead of seeking God's judgment, God's heart, God's will in a situation. And these are some really disturbing, but definitely make an impression stories on us that we should keep in mind every time we head out to make our own decisions. I pray that God is showing you those moments in your life today where you lean on your own understanding, where you seek your own wisdom. We are so limited. God's wisdom is so much bigger. He can see around all the corners. He knows what came before and he knows what comes after. And it is just so limited to seek our own understanding of a situation first. It's so limiting to seek our judgment in exclusion. We need to be seeking God. We need to be turning and asking for His guidance in a situation because that's how we see around corners that we can't otherwise see in our limited human views. I pray that God is blessing you today and that He brings you back to study with me again on another day. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.